Hi, I'm Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell here at the Unity Center in San Diego. Thank you so much for watching today. If you'd like to support the work that we do here, please consider making a contribution. Go to our website. It's easy to do. Thank you in advance for that contribution.
Reverend Wendy presents a talk that explores and expresses the truths of unity, and that there are real-world practical things that we can do to deepen our experience of spirituality and help us in our daily lives.
We are finishing up a series, a 7-part series on spiritual sticking points today, and I've really enjoyed this series. It's been fun for me to think about the ways that we get ourselves stuck and hold ourselves back from our spiritual growth and our awakening. I believe that when we have an understanding of those things, those attitudes or behaviors that wind up being an impasse or a blockage for us, when we know what they are, then we can pay attention to them and overcome them, transcend them, learn ways to get unstuck. And in our journey, we looked first at the need to know. We looked at the need to be right, the need to get even, the need to look good, the need to judge, and the need to keep score. And today we're going to be looking at the need to control. And if you missed any of those lessons along the way, you can pick them back up either through our app. Do you know we have over 2,000 people that have downloaded that app now? That's pretty darn good. Watching us all around the country and around the world. So we're not just those of us in this beautiful space together. So anyway, you can either look at them on the app or on our YouTube channel. But today, the need to control. How many of you know a controller in your life? Raise your hand if you know a controller or have ever known a controller. Maybe you worked for a controller. Maybe you were once married to a controller. Maybe you are now. Controller. We've all met them. And if we're honest, maybe there are some times that we look inside ourselves and we go, you know what, I think I'm being kind of controlling here. Controllers, those people who absolutely insist on their way all the time, no matter what. Those people who demand that it be this way and no other way. Those people who insist on running the entire show. Raise your hand again if you know anybody that's like that. What's the matter? Do most of you not live in the same world I live in? I don't know. I see a lot of them all around me. Controllers tend to believe that somehow, some way, if they can just make everything in their life and everyone in their life be just so, then they will be happy. I was thinking about the very important difference between being in control and being controlling. Being in control and being controlling. There's a big difference between those two for me. Is there a difference for you? Difference between being in control and being controlling. Here's what I think the difference is. Being in control is about me mastering myself in whatever situations I find myself in. Being controlling is me trying to make everybody else do and act and be the way I think they should be. I think one actually is quite beneficial. I think that my life works better when I am in mastery of myself. And sometimes I do a better job of that than others. But I've noticed how my life doesn't work very well when I try to step into controlling other people and other things. The moment I try to control other people and other things, events and situations, I set myself up for a lot of frustration and disappointment. Can you relate to that at all? Absolutely, absolutely. There is a lot that we cannot control. Do you agree with that? A whole lot that we can't control. No matter how much we wish that it might be different or otherwise, there's a lot that we can't control. But the fact that there is a lot that we are not able to control must never keep us from controlling what we can control. Controlling what we can control. And what is it that we can control? Ourselves. And it becomes especially important to be controlling ourselves or in self-mastery, especially when the things that are happening around us seem so out of control and seem so negative or challenging or exactly what we would not want to have happen. And so we master ourselves or we control ourselves to the extent that we are controlling our internal environment. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is how we choose to allow whatever is happening around us to affect us inwardly. That is at the heart and soul of so much of our spiritual growth work and is at the heart and soul of what we mean by our inner work. It's realizing that we always are at the potential choice point, power point of deciding how we are going to respond to, interpret, react to whatever is going on in our lives. That is incredible individual personal power that we have. It's interesting how often when we go deep into spiritual practice and teaching that sometimes we get a little bit lost and sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater. I've noticed that sometimes it's as if we think that to be spiritually aware and awakened and growing means we have to just dismiss everything we ever learned. And I do not believe that that is so at all. But it does mean that we open ourselves to greater awareness of the higher realms and the higher truths. That we pay attention to what is going on inside of us, and we look for those moments of awakening, we look for those moments of awareness. And oftentimes, the potential for awakening and awareness comes disguised as experiences and feelings that are challenging. For example, the feeling of fear or the feeling of anxiety is an invitation for us to probe deeper and to understand what's beneath that feeling of anxiety or what's beneath that feeling of fear. When we notice that we are feeling anxious, we can ask ourselves, wait a minute, am I feeling anxious here and now because I am trying to predict and control the future? What is really going on? Will I challenge myself to look deeper? Will I understand that everything in my life is an invitation to awaken? When we look at this idea of the need to control or the addictive response of control, it is really based in one fundamental feeling. Do you know what that feeling is? Yeah, it's based in fear. The feeling that we control because we're afraid that if we don't control, we might get hurt. Things might not work out. Things might fall apart. What's the opposite of fear? Faith, trust, absolutely. Absolutely. When we feel ourselves afraid and we notice that, wait a minute, I'm trying to control here, we want to step back and ask, what would faith's response be in the here? The opposite of fear is faith. What's the opposite of control? Letting go. Letting go. Have you noticed how challenging letting go can be sometimes? Anybody notice how challenging it can be? I will never forget a story I read in Guidepost magazine. I don't even think Guidepost is printed or even electronically available anymore. But it was an old Guidepost magazine, and it was a story of the then popular actress Anne Francis. And at pretty much the height of her career, she wanted to become a pilot. In addition to being a much-loved actress, she wanted to become a pilot. And so she was taking flying lessons, and she was just about at the end of her flying lesson series and was just about ready to be able to do a solo flight, but she had one more flight she had to do with her instructor. And while she was on this kind of last flight, before she could do them all by herself, she lost control of the plane. And in the process of that, the plane was doing some weird things, and her instructor told her what to do. And her instructor told her, let go of the wheel. Now put yourself in that situation for a moment. Would you have wanted to let go of the wheel? Would you have had at least a moment where you thought your instructor had completely lost it? I know that I probably would have been going like this, holding on tighter to try to do what? Control it. Control it. But her instructor, who knew planes inside and out and knew what was going on and why the plane was doing whatever it was doing that it wasn't supposed to be doing, knew the answer was not to grab tighter and control, but to let go for a few moments and the plane would right itself. I've never forgotten that. That had such a visceral impact on me when I read that story, because I could relate so much to that part of feeling like the way to fix things is to control them, is to control. And oftentimes, the way is to loosen up a little bit and to let go. How many of you have had the experience of praying for guidance? And you get guidance that basically says, let go. And you want to say, is there any other answer you could possibly give me? Do I really have to do that? Aren't we funny? Or am I the only one that's funny, that I will pray sometimes for guidance, and what I'm really praying for is affirmation of what I want to do? And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's okay to kind of check out, hey God, hey Spirit, is what I'm thinking I'm supposed to do the right thing, the best thing? But other times when I sit in prayer and ask to be guided, and I may get an answer that I think, oh no, I really don't want it to be that. You've been there, right? You've been there. That's what the letting go is about, a part of it anyway. The letting go of the control, the opening up to something greater, the allowing for something greater to move through us. Remember that poster that was popular years ago? I think it was a Siamese cat holding on to like a bar. And what's at the bottom? Everything I ever let go of had claw marks all over it. That is not the way to live as an enlightened being. You get that, right? That's not the way to live as an enlightened being. I had an aha last night as I was kind of going over some of this for myself. And one of the aha moments had to do with this idea that to the extent that we are controlling, to that extent we are limiting the universe from working through us. To the extent that we are controlling, to that extent we are limiting the universe from working through us. Think about that for a moment. To the extent that we are controlling, we are limiting the universe from working through us. When we are controlling, would you say that we are in an expanded state or more of a contracted state? Contracted state, right? When I even think about what control looks like or feels like in my body, when I notice that I'm in a controlling state, I can feel and see myself tense. Just the opposite of what it means to open up and be a wider channel or vehicle for spirit to move through. And yet, it is I think the magic happens. The magic happens for us when we allow ourselves to open up and to be used by this infinite source, this force for good, this power for good. It's a little bit like what we do in the heart of our affirmative prayer or in the heart of spiritual mind treatment. When we pray for something that we would like to see take place in our lives, there's nothing wrong with doing that, as long as when we are praying for a particular outcome, that we pray for this or something better, and that those are not just words, but that we actually mean it, It's a way of saying to the universe, here's what I think, here's the direction that I am trying to move in, and I am vulnerable enough, teachable enough, and humble enough to know that I do not know it all. And there may be something grander, wiser, better trying to move through me, and I am a willing vehicle for that to happen. There is so much external that we cannot control, and so much internal that we must control. And to the extent that we control internally, To that extent, the external has much less impact on us. It's a little bit like what happens when researchers go into the depths of the ocean in a diving bell. When they go deep, deep into the ocean in a diving bell, they can go deeper in that diving bell than they could ever go unprotected from that bell, right? The pressure of the ocean, the increasing or decreasing temperature of the ocean, the animals, the sharks, the animals that could be harmful to them, they don't have to worry about it because they're inside this protective diving bell. For us, that protective state, if you will, is our consciousness. That is what we want to be safeguarding, meaning that is what we want to be aware of. What are we allowing to come in our thoughts, in our attitudes, in our feelings, and take root? Okay? I think it is very natural for many of us to still have all sorts of crazy and negative thoughts that cross our mind from time to time. It is not what crosses our mind from time to time, but what we dwell in that determines the internal state of our being. And that internal state of our being is what impacts everything all around us. Shana sang a beautiful song that touched upon this idea that life is a balance of holding on and letting go, and knowing when to do which, of holding on and letting go. And it's not always one or the other. It's not that you always hold on and never let go, nor is it that you never let go and you always hold on, or vice versa. I may have mixed that all up, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's a balance. It's knowing when it is time to hold on and when it is time to let go. I wish that I could tell you that there is an absolute way to always know for sure which is which, but I can't. But I can tell you what helps you get better and better at knowing which is which. Are you interested? What do you think I'm going to tell you is the key? Some of you are touching on it. Learning to know which to do, the letting go or the holding on, takes spiritual practice, and the spiritual practice it takes begins with mindfulness meditation. It begins with learning how to quiet the crazy, chattering, active mind, learning how to quiet that, and learning how to listen for what we might call the voice of wisdom, the still small voice, the voice of truth within us. And what happens is as we learn to quiet the mind, and as we learn to listen to and for that voice, we're going to find on the beginning end that our batting average may not be all that great. But if we stay with the practice, if we continue to be committed to learning how to be more mindful and to listen more deeply and to follow whatever it is we think we are sensing or hearing, the outcome's going to determine whether we were paying attention to the right thing or not. When we pay attention, we have this beautiful feedback loop of learning, but it requires our constant practice in paying attention. Our random practice in paying attention isn't going to get us there. It's only going to perpetuate the hit and miss cycle of what I'm talking about. I was counseling with somebody this past week, and the individual was sharing with me the challenging state and place that they find themselves in. That's why they asked if they could come and spend a little bit of time with me. And a light bulb went off for this individual when he said, you know what I realized? I know I need to be doing this stuff. I know I need to make the time to be here on Sunday mornings. I know I need to make the time to pray and meditate and practice these things every day. But as soon as things are going well, I stop. And then things start to fall apart, and then I go back again, and I start again. And he said to me, I bet you if I just did it all the time, even when things were going well, they wouldn't get to the place where they're falling apart and I need to come in and see you. He said, you are so right. You are so right. Why is it? Why is it that we practice or we pray when things are falling apart? desperately seeking an answer, desperately seeking help and support. And then when things are going well, we go, well, don't have to really do that stuff. It's okay. It's like we use God just for emergencies, right? Crisis intervention. But that's not the way it's meant to be. At least it doesn't have to be that way. And the more consistent we are with our practicing, the beautiful thing is, like anything else, we get better. A musician gets better by practicing again and again and by learning from the mistakes that they've made, correcting those mistakes, and staying with the practice over and over and over. And in time, they get much better. The same thing is true of us in our spiritual growth and awakening. The more willing we are to practice consistently, the more we're going to reap the benefits of that. And so I want to close with this last thought. An invitation of the way we can look at our lives and look at this recognition that there are some things we can control and a lot of things we can't. The invitation is this: start looking at anything you can't control as something that has come to teach you how to let go. Start looking at anything you know you can't control as something that has come to teach you how to let go. Do this with me right now. Hold your hands like this. And think about something going on in your life right now that you really know you can't personally control. You can control yourself, but you can't control it, okay? So look at it as something that has come to teach you how to let go. And just relax your hands for a moment. Just relax your hands for a moment. As simple as that physical act can be, if we really practice something as simple as that, it helps us to anchor these teachings and these concepts in a more real way. It helps us to move them just out of our head into our very state of being. Namaste.
The Unity Center. Spiritually progressive, socially responsive, radically inclusive. We have services on Sundays at 9 and 11. Many people enjoy Reverend Wendy's talks and meditations and aren't able to attend the Unity Center in person. If you're part of our extended family from around the world and would like to help support the Unity Center, please go to our website or download our free app, which offers even more ways to connect with the Unity Center. Namaste.